I've seen property tax completely derail a family's budget, sometimes causing over $800 or more in monthly increases to their mortgage payment.
Christine Lucian, my good friend, I am happy to have you here with us today. You've been a municipal property tax assessor here in Michigan for the last 15 years, serving the community. I know your mission is to protect Michigan property owners, but I think this is going to speak to the whole nation, right? Because property taxes are something we deal with nationally. And just educating mortgage, real estate, title professionals on the knowledge that you have and how that can help buyers and sellers, homeowners, with the overlooked risks in home ownership, like property tax uncapping. I know one of the things you and I love to talk about is people over profit. And I love that you're an advocate for that, of really putting other people's needs before your own. And I think that's why we're so well aligned. And I know you work directly with professionals and clients to make sure that there's fairness and that they're making informed decisions. So today we're going to uncover probably one of the most dangerous financial pitfalls outside of mortgage planning when we talk about the massive down payments and paying cash and the opportunity cost for that. There's a hidden one that is really not so hidden. It's kind of staring us all in the face, but there's a lot of misinformation about that. And I know that whether it's any homeowner, home buyer in Michigan or anywhere in the country, this is going to be powerful information for them. I think one of the things, we'll get into is the why behind that. Why are so many clients being blindsided by skyrocketing property taxes, and really what professionals can do to help educate better? What's one of the biggest tax horror stories you've seen that could have been avoided?
One sticks out in my mind pretty clearly, but this happens pretty often, where this lady came into my office and she was really upset because her mortgage company told her that her bill was going to be going up $800 a month. And the reasoning that they gave her was because of property tax. So she naturally came to my office to question me on how I could do this. Is this accurate? There must be some mistake here. Well, she had her 3 little children running around behind her. And when I reviewed the paperwork, it was obvious to me that the professionals that got her to the closing table simply failed to properly calculate the tax, because what she purchased the property for was more than what we were even valuing it at. So when I say that, that means there is no mistake. It is correct. The reason your taxes have gone up is because the seller had lived there for so long, which caused a large jump of over $15,000 on an annual basis. So once I kindly explained to her, the numbers are not incorrect, this is accurate, the tears started flowing through her eyes and she started crying, and her kids were running all around, and I just felt so bad. She told me that they were getting ready to go to Disney World, and that because of this, they have to cancel their trip and they have to cancel some other things that they had coming up. And even though I knew it wasn't my fault because I was the one delivering the bad news, it still sticks with me, even though it was like 9 months ago. I'll never forget it because of the way her kids were kind of seeing her cry, and they knew something was wrong, and they're looking at me like I did something. But in reality, this could have been avoided by the professionals who got her to the closing table, doing the correct math, asking the right questions, and being aware of the inevitable tax increase that this consumer would be paying for the lifetime of her ownership.
That's hard. And it's not only heartbreaking. It's like, not only, okay, yeah, maybe they missed the Disney trip, but they may have to reassess their whole lifestyle at that point,
they
right?
did. Yeah. She even said before leaving that she's not sure she's going to be able to keep the house. And, that brings me to realtors. You want to have these clients for life. You want them to remember the amazing experience. You want them to keep coming back and send you referrals and think of you in their next purchase. But when the entire transaction is soured by the financial issues, I don't know where that leaves the agents and the title and the lending. I would never go back to those professionals if that happened to me. I would believe they dropped the ball. They weren't educated. They didn't care. They wanted to close the sale and they didn't care about what happened to me after. Especially because in a municipal standpoint, I'm very honest with the property owner. I tell them to their face, this could have been known up front. These numbers are very simple. Had you come to me before you bought this home, I would have told you exactly what your taxes were going to be next year after you buy and every year that you live there. And you would have been able to financially prepare. But the problem is I don't get that opportunity until they've already closed and they're bringing in their closing documents. So that's very frustrating for me. And that's why I've gone on this journey that I'm on of educating the masses and trying to target professionals that are involved in these transactions and helping property owners navigate these difficult financial situations ahead of time.
I love it. We talk about mortgage planning, we talk about cash flow, we talk about rate strategies, but nobody talks about property tax. And again, when in an example of $15,000, when I look at the retirement planning side of that, I mean, let's just say they were staying in that home for 15 years. If they were funding, saying where to place this money, but if they were allocating that money somewhere where it would be growing for them, potentially tax-free, I mean, now you're starting to talk about millions of dollars that because the planning wasn't done right up front, or, I mean, what could they have done? They could have just made one phone call to you and said, hey, Christine, and this brings me to a question, like what's one thing that every real estate professional should say before a home is even listed?
Let's take a look at what your property taxes are going to be moving forward rather than what the current seller is paying, because seller's taxes are never going to be buyer's taxes.
Okay.
It's never going to happen.
And I think that, like, maybe we say that like 10 more times throughout the interview or this conversation, right? That the seller's taxes are not the buyer's taxes. Every time. I mean, even, right now with us being a multi-billion-dollar corporation, we implemented a whole entire tax policy to. Now, luckily, I have you in my corner where I go to you before a client is ever even putting in an offer on a house. But I don't know how many lenders or realtors or actually call. I know you've probably educated maybe 700, 500. I don't know what.
1,500.
1,500. Okay.
1,500. But to go back to what you just said, you don't know if they call. Working in over 9 different municipal offices throughout my career, rarely do I get a call, what our tax is going to be once I buy this. I wish they were all asking me that question, but it's more so surface level stuff. It doesn't really matter. Can you confirm the bathroom count? Can you confirm if this has a dock? Whatever it may be. Things that really don't matter to me. I wish people would call and say, what are my taxes going to be once I buy this? Because they wouldn't be blindsided. They would know up front.
Do you feel like some of these quote unquote professionals just don't care, or they know that it might blow up the deal?
So 2 years ago, I probably wouldn't have known how to answer that. But over the last 2 years, yes, I have 1,500 certified education students, but there's hundreds more agents that I've just spoken to on a random basis where I do ask them these questions. And the results are sometimes they are just, well, we never were taught this. This isn't part of our licensing. nobody makes tax requirement for getting the exam and passing the exam. They'll say, oh, the brokers are the ones that have that in their exam, and it's their job to trickle that knowledge down to their team and educate all of us. But no, they really don't. They just want to collect the check. You have everybody kind of talking about one another. Nobody really wants to take responsibility in themselves, which for me and you, we prioritize educating ourselves so we can help people, right? But I find that a lot of people in this industry want to play the blame game. It's not part of my job. That's not part of my job description. Nobody ever taught me that. I do think a lot of them also don't care, because in the same regard, I've had the conversations where they'll blatantly say back to me, well, then I'll lose the deal. If I tell them how much the taxes are going to be, then they won't buy that house. And it's like, for me, I get like a physical cringe when I hear that.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, well, maybe they shouldn't buy that house, because they're probably going to have to sell it a year later because you're putting them in a bad spot by hiding that. I've even talked to lenders who've said, Christine, if we use your formulas on accounting for future tax, then the applicants won't qualify for these homes. Ding, ding, ding. Isn't that the point?
So
why are people qualifying people for things that they don't really afford? Luckily, you and I have identified some similarities in how we think and feel with some of our realtor partners.
Yeah.
There's a couple that are really into everything that we do and everything that we teach, and we're really aligned in that journey of protecting the client. So I'm thankful for that. But I would say that there's a variety. Some of them don't care. Some of them just don't know.
Fair enough. Now, if we're speaking to educating home buyers, what is uncapping and why should home buyers care?
So an uncapping refers to the taxable value increasing to match half of market value the calendar year after their closing. So when you purchase a property, you have two property values. You have a state equalized value and a taxable value. And depending on how long the seller has lived there or owned it, they don't even need to live there. However long they've owned it, it is likely that the gap between those two figures is larger and larger and larger every year, especially for anybody who's owned their property before the 2008 recession and they still own it today. I still tell those people they're paying recession taxes, because part of the uncapping is the year after you're uncapping, your taxable value only rises at the rate of inflation, which has a max of 5%, but is generally in the 2 to 3% range. So when the state equalized value is increasing annually based off of current market conditions, the taxable value, once you get past that uncapping year, only goes up at the small inflation rate. And that is where the longer the owner holds onto it, the bigger the gap between those two figures builds up and grows. And then a buyer comes along and buys the property, and all of a sudden that taxable value shoots up to whatever the new state equalized value is for the next calendar year. So I've seen $400,000 differences between those two figures.
Wow.
And even, we love our residential clients, but even commercial clients, even investors who are just buying rental homes and things like that. How are you going to calculate your proper return on investment or build your rent rates when you don't even know your taxes are going to go up 10 grand a year? It makes no mathematical sense to me at all. Like, how could anybody ignore property taxes beyond me? But it is probably the most commonly ignored part of purchasing property.
It's crazy.
It really is.
And yeah, no, I think that 400,000, that was a commercial one, right?
It was, yes. But even residential, I've seen $300,000 gaps between those figures.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you've obviously been a tax assessor for over 15 years, and I can probably answer this question for you, but I want you to answer it for the audience. What made you shift from doing the work on that side to now sort of teaching the system?
It was an overwhelming feeling that just continuously kept showing up in my face. Every time I had a phone call where somebody was upset that they didn't understand or know what was coming, the questions about the tax bill increases, the people who had to cancel their vacations, who have to sell their homes, all of the things that I saw just grew and grew and grew into a feeling that I couldn't ignore any longer. And I said, enough is enough. There's got to be some way to start telling people about this. Because when I constantly have residents coming in and I tell them the facts in a very kind and professional way, I tell them how it is. I don't sugarcoat anything. I do it nicely. But I'm very honest. And the amount of times they say something negative then about the realtor or the lender or the title company after they have that conversation with me made me kind of have a light bulb moment. Like, maybe these professionals need to know what's happening after closing. I don't think they realize that I'm constantly having these interactions with their clients who now are my residents. So it was a mixture of wanting to help the professionals get better and letting them know all of the things I've been seeing and hearing, as well as protecting consumers in order to just help as many people as possible.
I love it. No, it's a powerful mission, and you're obviously doing a phenomenal job with it. Now, you touched on this a little bit, but so if somebody is buying a house from a long-time owner, let's say 25 to 30 years, how much could their property taxes jump? I know it's different in every city, but is there an example that you have of one?
Obviously, because every single property in every municipality are different, I can't generalize it, but if I had to make an educated analogy, it would be at least double. Minimum.
Wow. Okay.
It would at minimum double.
Okay.
That is the most common thing that I see. When you look at the numbers and you look at the monetary difference between the two values and you multiply that difference by the millage rate, it is 8 out of 10 times double what the seller is paying.
It's crazy. Now, you touched on investors a little bit, but how are they impacted by uncapping differently than just maybe somebody who's buying a primary residence?
They're impacted differently because they're getting hit double. When an investor is buying a home, not only are we increasing the taxable value to match the current SCV the year after closing, but we're also dropping their primary residence exemption savings that the prior owner had. So they're paying a higher millage rate and they're paying higher off of a higher taxable value. So it's like a double hit for an investor because there's two factors in a property tax bill, the millage rate and the value. So when we're increasing the value due to the change of ownership and they're losing their exemption from the prior owner, it's going to result in even more than it would for a residential primary homeowner that's going to be residing there.
No, and that's powerful, right? I hear lenders and realtors that obviously, our approach to wealth building is a little bit different than because we bring in the financial services side and whatnot, or we'll connect with advisors, CPAs, estate planning attorneys. Obviously, you're part of that circle as the assessor because, I can't be a penny off when I'm doing that, right? So let alone be $15,000 a year off. That completely derails, to use your word. It throws off the entire retirement picture. Give me an example on, like, what if someone inherits a property? Would that cause an uncapping as well?
Inheriting would depend on the exact relation from the buyer and the seller.
Okay.
So the only way that somebody can inherit the prior owner's taxable value that they set when they initially bought it 20, 30 years ago is if they share more than 50% of the same bloodline. So that is very specifically any transaction after December 31st, 2014, that is from grandparents, parents, siblings, children, and adopted children. So when you get these people coming in and they say, I bought it from my aunt, I bought it from my cousin or my uncle, they don't qualify. And this is only for residential. It doesn't count for commercial property.
Okay.
And in Michigan specifically,
Sure.
and I'm sure these laws are different everywhere, but in Michigan, they have the definition of a commercial use property as any property rented for more than 15 days in a calendar year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So if you inherit a residential property and you intend to rent it out for more than 15 days of a calendar year, you do not qualify for that inheritance of the seller's taxable value.
That's powerful. So what tools can realtors and lenders use to estimate and educate around future taxes? I think you've got some stuff.
I have some stuff, but really quick on that last thing.
Yeah.
You said that's powerful. It's powerful because the professionals make a lot of assumptions about these laws. Most wouldn't even know about the commercial exception for 15 days being rented. You can't get a rental home, or you can't get a home from your family, turn it into a rental, and still get that savings. But I know that there's agents out there and title companies out there and even attorneys out there that are telling people the laws in a way that they're deciphering the law, but really aren't accurate. And then that buyer gets a surprise when they go visit somebody like me or an assessor at the city because they're told something different. And so they're assuming that they're eligible for these savings and these exemptions when they're really not. So that brings back to your question you just asked, tools and resources. My website, I've been building over the last year and a half, but I've really put a lot of time into it the last couple months. PropertyTaxAcademy.com has a ton of resources, guidelines for property transfer exemptions, disabled veterans exemptions, principal residence exemptions. It has links to find millage rates for the entire state. It has a property search to find data for properties. It has forms on there to help you save money. There's a lot on there, and people can always book a call with me to really nail down the specifics of these tax savings laws and options and strategize with them based off of just like you with the mortgage planning. What do you currently have? How many properties do you have? What's your goal with this one? What are your future plans? I use that same strategy to help them come up with a way and loopholes around laws to help them save the most. Even if it's filing paperwork and deeds at the Register of Deeds in a specific sequential order to avoid tax uncapping. There's a lot of ways that we can
talk a little more about that.
So, for instance, I had these ladies come into my office where their sister owned a property and they lived there with their sister. Well, she was concerned that they were going to, she was going to outlive them. So she deeded it to her niece, their brother's daughter, totally different sibling, upon her death. Well, then the niece transferred it back to her aunts, the original owner's sisters. Well, that uncapped the taxes and actually more than doubled their taxes because the sequential order was incorrect. Had she gone straight to her sisters and avoided the niece, that would have never happened.
Is that the 50%?
Yeah, because the niece doesn't share more than 50% of the bloodline with the aunt.
Got it.
So moral of that story is sometimes I'll help clients file deeds in a very specific order. For instance, getting a property into an LLC or out of an LLC from an individual name without the taxes going up. There's strategy to that. So if you do them in a specific order where you're following the exemption laws, then you can avoid resetting that taxable value at half of market value, and you can keep your original taxable value rate.
I feel like even though we've taught classes millions of times together, I've sat through your classes, I feel like every time we have a conversation, I'm learning something new.
It's true, because I'm even learning new things all the time. The state's always emailing us updates, and assessors are required to take 20 hours of certified continuing education every year. And we have to constantly be learning new things as well. And there are so many different aspects to every single law that it doesn't surprise me that you learn something new every time we talk, because I feel like in the small amount of time I get to make my videos online or have these conversations or do the classes, it's never enough time to dive really deep into the specifics of these laws and how to really utilize them.
Maybe we'll start doing some YouTube long form.
Yeah.
We'll add that to our list.
Our never-ending
list. But our never-ending list is serving the people, right?
Absolutely.
It really is. It's all about that. Now, for Property Tax Academy, who's that for? Is it just for realtors, lenders, and title, or is that homeowners and home buyers?
Property Tax Academy began as serving certified education to realtors, but I kept the name, and it's grown into educating everybody from property owners to lenders to title to attorneys to investors. But also there is a private consultation division of it now where we work directly with property owners to help them fight inconsistencies in their property records and in their property valuations, help them fix the errors caused by other professionals. When title companies don't file paperwork correctly, that causes a lot of money for the client to be paying. And so we have ways and strategy to go back and address the municipality and fix those. And that obviously comes with 15 years experience of working in that sector.
Yeah, I love that. So now some of the mistakes that these professionals make are not reversible, right?
Right.
Some of them are. Can you give me a scenario? Because I know you've had some recently with luckily some of our realtor partners have been bringing clients to the table to maybe fight their taxes, or I don't know if fight is the right word, attest the taxes, or is there a scenario where you can, if a homeowner is listening to this and they've got a new massive tax bill, is there a scenario where you can shed some light on of a huge win for a client on attesting their taxes?
I mean, I had a lot of huge wins this spring. I only had 5 clients this spring, but the total tax savings of all of them was over $35,000 annually. One of them specifically, I saved. They had 2 properties, and we used same strategy, but a little different for each one. And he saved over $14,000 a year on both of them combined. And I also, because he was such a great client, I found a way to get him 100% homestead, because he has a duplex, and duplexes aren't eligible for 100% homestead, but his mom resides in the other side. So I had a quitclaim deed drafted up for him, adding mom onto title, and drafted a property transfer and a homestead form to get her own 50% principal residence exemption, which ended up equating to 100% for the whole property. That was really cool.
Yeah,
so he didn't even know that was a thing. And, luckily we got the property value reduced, but that was just an extra cherry on top.
I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
How does it feel like, because I see the passion that goes into it. I see I know it's also not easy. I know you get a lot of pushback from, probably a lot of hate,
I'm definitely a black sheep, but I'm following my heart. It's hard because I am loyal to the assessing world because there are a lot of good assessors, and we have a tough job where we are under critique from the counties and the state on doing things a certain way and following laws, even if in our heart we don't feel that they're that. We still have to follow the laws. And so I do. But on the other side, I have found a way to legally help property owners strategize in their own way against some of the things that I know are wrong. So the bravery that I've had to put on every day to face people in my industry and keep going, keep fighting the good fight is heavier than a lot of people know.
So you're catching it from both sides. You're catching it from the property tax assessing side, and then you're catching it from the quote unquote, and I'm going to use air quotes, professionals, because they're not professionals if they're not actually taking this stuff into account. And I'm talking about realtors, lenders, and title companies.
Yeah. I feel like I'm stuck in the middle a little bit, but I would rather be stuck in the middle helping people and spreading knowledge and assistance than standing on the sidelines scared, watching havoc continue to happen. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. If there's a realtor or an LO or a title rep listening, how can they be a better advocate when it comes to taxes?
Caring
to
understand it a little bit. People get a little funny. They're like, this isn't my job. This is your job. Well, you're right. It is my job. But here's the problem. I don't get to meet these people until they already buy it. So imagine how frustrating that is. I would do this for everybody if I could, but I don't get to meet your client till they already own it because I don't have an opportunity to formulate future taxes for buyers. How am I supposed to be a mind reader and know that they're out there and they're going to buy that home?
Right.
I don't find out till they already own it. So when people say this isn't my job, this is your job, you're right, but you play an important part. There is some responsibility here because I don't care. And sometimes it's even realtors that have been in the business 30 years. And it's like, well, Proposal A, which is the law that created the taxable value uncapping, is 30 years old. So what's your excuse for constantly brushing it under the rug and pretending it doesn't exist when it's inevitably going to increase your client's property tax? And the increase isn't one time. It's every year that they continue to own it. So if we increase your taxes $5,000 one year and you live there 10 years, that's $50,000 in taxes that your client didn't think they were ever going to pay that they are paying. And in mortgage planning, you know how much that could do for the client in building wealth,
right, and
protecting them and helping them build their dream life.
Absolutely.
So it's very frustrating.
For speaking to home buyers, and I'm obviously a part of First Home IQ, which is really empowering this next generation of home buyers. What do you want the next generation of home buyers to know?
I want them to know that there are people out there like you and I that really care about them as humans and that we want to see them win for the lifetime because people are very hardworking. So try to work with people who you know genuinely care about your future because unfortunately, future buyers, here's a pretty sad truth. Many of the professionals you're going to encounter are either uneducated or uncaring. And you get one that's both, that's very scary. And you don't want to work with somebody like that because it's not going to do you any favors for your future. So ask questions. Call the city. If you see a property you like, call the city and ask them questions about it. If I got those calls from consumers, I would be happy to spend 30 minutes. It doesn't take 30 minutes. It takes 5 minutes. But I would spend an hour with them just telling them about the property, doing a tax calculation so that way they knew what was to come. But it doesn't take that long. It only takes 5 minutes. But just protect yourself. Be your own advocate. Watch your own back. A lot of the videos I make, it's watch your own back because you have to take care of yourself. So
yeah, and if we could work with every home buyer and in the country, we would. But obviously, we're fighting the good fight and trying to help everybody that we can. What's something that you believe now that you didn't believe when you started this journey?
I initially didn't believe that people cared that much. And then we started doing events and we get feedback from those events. And I started teaching classes. And the feedback that I do get has always been relatively great. They say, every agent should learn this. They should require this as part of licensing. Every broker should be ensuring that their agents know about this stuff. And that makes me feel really good. I didn't always think that would happen because, arrogance is prevalent in this industry. And if you're a high-performing agent making millions of dollars a year, you don't care about property tax. You don't care. Your clients probably don't care much about property tax. And even the wealthiest clients, though, they need to be able to do the planning with the financial planning. But they're assuming that they don't care because they have money. But I think that wealthy client might want to know that they could make an extra 6 or 7 figures by planning ahead like that. So I guess I thought maybe people didn't care. I got that feeling for probably about a year. And now I'm 2.5 years into it. I definitely think people are starting to care more because I'm not stopping. I keep talking about it. I keep throwing it in everybody's face. I'm not going away. I'm being brave every day, showing up, not stopping. I think I'm starting to force them to care. So
I love it.
Yeah.
I love that. Speaking to homeowners directly, when should homeowners be checking for their assessments?
So every city is mostly in February, but the city of Detroit specifically is in January. So they have so many residents that they have their own calendar that they work on. So I would say around December, January, February, you should be really wondering what your new property value is going to be and getting ahead of it. And right now I am making list of clients to start working with in the fall. People who missed their chance to appeal their value this year. People who already know that they want to try and put up the fight to get a reduction. I'm going to be working with them in fall, months ahead of time, in order to prioritize a win. Yep.
Okay. So when they're reading the assessment letter, like, let's say something looks off. What do they do? Call you?
They could call the city and ask if it's accurate, but if it's being sent to them, it's most likely accurate. But there are mistakes on those sometimes.
Okay.
So you could request a record card, a property record card, and review it. A property record card is going to show your zoning, your square footage, bathroom count, bedroom count, the siding, what kind of foundation you're on, how big your garage is, if you have any outbuildings. When you look at your property record card, you want to look at it for accuracy. And if anything sticks out to you, there could be grounds to get an adjustment just through that alone. And then obviously, if you see on your assessment notice that it should be your primary home and the percentage savings is not reflecting that, it says 0% instead of 100%, that is a sign that your taxes are going to be calculated incorrectly based off of a higher millage rate than they should be. So that would be something important to look at as well.
Okay. What would you say your top 3 tips are for homeowners, home buyers to avoid getting blindsided?
Never assume seller's taxes are the buyer's taxes. Never assume that the city or township has all of the specs on your home completely accurate. Always request a property record card and verify. I've seen many homes that have the wrong square footage, or they have buildings on there that no longer exist, things like that. We, try to be perfect, but we're not. And the third one would be work with a mortgage planning specialist to actually dive into how you can make your money work for you rather than just throwing it all into a down payment and hoping for the best.
Okay. And when you're saying mortgage planning, that's because we incorporate someone like yourself, the property tax assessor, to say, okay, like I think giving an example of how we operate with a client would help not only homeowners, home buyers, but other professionals as well. So client will come to me, or the realtor will send me a link and say, client wants to buy this house. I immediately come in, send it over to you, ask you what those future taxes are going to be. And you said something to me the other day in a text message, and you said, am I a deal killer?
I said, am I officially a professional deal killer?
That was fair. And my response was, well, of course you're not. But my response was really more around you're saving people here's the thing. Like we have one right now where the taxes doubled, but she loves the house. She understands that the taxes have went up. She's offers already accepted back. It's under contract. But again, now when I call her next year and do that annual mortgage review, I'm not getting some blindsided thing about, Mike, my taxes went from $5,000 to $10,000. It's, oh yeah, I already knew this was coming. Thank you for letting me know. And I think that process, I mean, it'll take me 5 minutes. Like it's not a very complicated process, right? So what's a question a homeowner or a home buyer rather should be asking their lender and their real estate agent to avoid getting blindsided? I know it can be as simple as, what are my future taxes?
Have you looked into or considered how my property taxes are going to change once I am the owner versus what the seller is paying? Do you care? Have you checked?
Have you checked? Do you care? No, I love that. So where can people connect with you?
The best place to connect with me is through my website, propertytaxacademy.com, and also on Instagram, the Michigan Assessor.
Love it. And who should be reaching out to you right now?
Anybody who owns property.
Or is buying a property, considering buying a property?
Anybody buying a property, anybody selling a property, anybody who currently owns property. I have ways and strategies to help all different people.
What about real estate agents, lenders, title companies?
Real estate agents, lenders, title companies. I can help give you the tools you need to ensure that you don't have these problems moving forward and that you can set yourselves apart from all of your competition.
I absolutely love it. Well, Christine, I think I've got 3 pages of notes, and that's from somebody who talks to you on a daily basis, and that I appreciate that. There was just like little nuggets that I was continuously taking away. Obviously, you and I are on a journey to continue to protect and really put people in these. We're talking about one side of it, but again, you nailed it when you said these incorrect calculations can be the difference of 6 or 7 figures for people in their retirement years. And we're already dealing with most retirees' concern is outliving their money. So, but a lot of them are in that position because of decisions that they made, not bad decisions, right? Decisions that, okay, there's 2 houses here for $500,000. One of them, the taxes are going to be $6,000. The other one is $12,000, but nobody told me it was going to be $12,000. And now I've got over 10 years, I've got a difference of $60,000, not including what would be the compounding effect of compound interest and, the whole investment side of that. But if you're speaking to home buyers directly right now, what is the number one thing? And maybe it's calling you, maybe it's reaching out to you, but what's the number one thing that they can do to avoid getting blindsided? And it might be repetitive, but what is the number one thing that they can do?
Anybody buying a home right now needs to be asking the question, what can I expect to pay on an annual basis on my property tax? Ignore the seller's taxes. Ignore what Zillow says at the bottom of the screen. Ignore what the listing ticket says. All of these avenues have been proven to be incorrect on numerous occasions, and you really need to do some simple math or call the city directly or work with a lender or realtor that know what they're doing.
I absolutely love it.
I just wanted to say thank you for going on this journey with me, because it's sometimes feels lonely, and I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. We're in it together.
Yes.
I love it.
That's it.